Pew pew! This is the third deck of Outlaws at Thunder Junction I'll be going over. It is kind of the one that I've seen more interest in when it comes to me. I am a very Izzet player and I do like Storm and stuff. I haven't really gone through the deck as of recording now. I like doing it at the same time, so I'm learning while you're learning at the same time. So again, I've seen the commander, sub-commander, I haven't read through them properly, threw a bunch of the cards in, and now I'm going to give my overall thoughts and opinions of the deck. But first, a word from our sponsors. The sponsor of this video is me. I have started an Etsy page where I'm going to try and be selling clothes that I've designed, thought would be funny, thought would be cool, thought would be amazing on people's bodies. So I literally spent maybe a month or two looking at different resources and stuff to come up with the nicest clothes I could possibly find, with the coolest designs that I have done myself, with stuff like playmats, hoodies, t-shirts. I'm going to try and do phone cases. They're harder than I thought, but I do think that it is a really good thing to actually put into. So if you would like to help me out or help the channel out, please go onto my Etsy. It will be linked down below and you'll be able to find very nice clothing and also be supporting the channel. So links down below, and also if there's any other designs, I will be putting on any of my social media, so please follow me there as well. So let's start off this amazing video with the commander, and the commander is Stellarly Wild card. For 1 blue and a red, you get a legendary creature, human rogue, that is a mythic. Whenever you cast your second spell each turn, exile the top card of your library. Until end of turn, you may play that card. Tap. Copy target instant or sorcery spell you control. You may choose new target for the copy. Activate only if you've cast 3 or more spells this turn, and it is a 3/4. Again, I'm not a big fan of this. Again, as an Izzet player, I have 3 Izzet decks and I love my 3 Izzet decks. I'm not a big fan of this card. 3-cost commander with no key abilities is okay, but that means its ability would have to be quite good. I'm not a big fan of exiling cards to play later on. When you don't play them, they're gone. Now, I got excited when I first read the second half of the ability because copying spells, especially in the commander, would be really, really good, but it only works if you've done it 3 times. Again, I understand why there's that limitation on it, but I'm not the biggest fan. I don't want to exile my cards, and I also don't want to copy a spell after playing 3 previous spells. There is way too many copy cards as someone that has an extra turn deck that has a lot of copy spells, who has a Zaffy deck that has copy target spells to do large amounts of damage. I had focused on the 10 damage when it came to Zaffy. I have a lot of copy spells, and pulling this, looking at this card and going, you're going in neither. Not a biggest fan of the commander. But again, with every commander, there is a sub-commander, and when it comes to this, the sub-commander of the deck is Eris, Roar of the Storm. For 8 blue and a red, you get a legendary creature, Elemental Warlock, that is a mythic. This spell costs 2 less to cast for each different mana value among instants and sorceries cards in your graveyard. It has Flying and Prowess. Whenever you cast your second spell each turn, create a 4/4 red dragon elemental creature token with Flying and Prowess, and it is a 4/4. Now this is a very me card. When I seen the mana value of 10 mana, I was like, oh, that's gonna be way too much. This ability has to be absolutely amazing. The fact that it also becomes 2 less per card that has a different mana value, again, you'll have to find the best card when it comes to an instant or sorcery that is 1 to 10 mana and everything in between to actually get a good cast off this. But also the fact that it also does count off the command attacks too. So again, if someone kills your commander, oh no, whatever am I going to do? Oh, I'm going to play like this card. That's an instant or sorcery, and now the command attacks is gone. Then the rest of the abilities is absolutely broken. Press is such a good and broken ability. I absolutely love it. My mate has or had a Press deck with a monk, and it was really powerful and I really enjoyed watching them play it. But the fact that it also makes on any turn, doesn't matter when, as long as you play 2 spells, you play 2 instances, you get one on someone else's turn, a 4/4 dragon with Press as well, and everything flies. So again, really hard to block. This is a really good sub-commander. This is actually a commander I could see myself building something around. I actually have a Locust God deck, and I'm actually thinking of playing it in because the amount of draw spells I play per turn on my turn is absolutely amazing. So having two big massive creatures that also make tokens is a really good ability. I do think that if you have the right Locust God deck, this card could go in that. But now that we've gone over the commander and sub-commander, let's go over the context of the deck, starting off with the creatures. Now, of course, this being a very instant and sorcery heavy deck, there is only 20 creatures in total, but you get creatures just like Bloodthirsty Advisory, Khazar Roll Chaser, Thunderclap Drake, Hofty Djinn, Veyron Voice of Duality, Archmage Emmaurus, Triland Sky Summoner, Crackling Spellslinger, Niv Mizzet Parun, Octave Living Thesis. To be honest, I thought I would actually see the creature that copies a spell, but again, shocked that I did actually see that. There's a fair few creatures in here that I'm like, that's cool, but a fair few creatures like Question, stuff like Niv, and that Tentacle 8 thing that's also an enchantment. Very weird, but cool card. Now we're going over the spells of the deck. There's 30 in general, which is really a lot when it comes to a deck like this. But of course there is, because this is kind of a Storm, Instants and Sorceries matters deck. So of course there's going to be many. But you get really cool instant sorceries, just like Curse of the Swine, Epic Experiment, Finality of Promise, Finality of Revelations, Gelvic Iteration, Chaos Warp, Lock and Load, Mizzet's Mastery, Beryl's Experience, Pytric Charge, Rousing Refrain, Elemental Eruption, and Dig Through Time. So when it comes to this, the Swine card, I'm like, again, why are you here? Makes sense with the sub-commander, kind of with the commander, but not as much. There's cards like Chaos Warp, again, I always love to see in these decks, but I feel like I'm having the same thing when it comes to like swords and stuff, where I'm kind of sick of seeing the reprint. But when it comes to Chaos Warp, I don't know why, I just love the card so much that I'm like, I feel like it's favoritism, because it is. I'm not going to go and lie there. There's a fair few cards that are really good, and when it comes to the X mana value cards, if you're kind of confused, I'm pretty sure it's just the pips that count there. So there's a few cards in here that I'm like, why are you here? But again, I understand why. I would personally just buy the sub-commander on its own if you're interested in that, and build the deck from scratch. If you want to hard focus on that ability, it seems to be more focused on the commander, which I'm not a big fan of. So when it comes to that type of situation, I've always just bought the sub-commander straight out and then just went from there on my own. But I do have a lot of cards. So again, if you're newer to the game, I only suggest doing that if you have a lot of cards or friends that you can buy cards off, or other singles that you don't mind spending a bit of cash on. But the artifacts of the deck is next. There's 8 of them in total, 6 of them being mana rocks because there's a lot of storm and you need a lot of mana, but you get artifacts just like Leyline Dowser, Winged Boots, Cursed Mirror, Forger's Foundry, and Midnight Clock. Again, do find it weird that there's like Winged Boots, especially since the sub-commander can fly. It's again focused on the commander, but I don't find this to be a Voltron deck, but that could just be me. It's a very weird deck overall. I can't really find the hard focus, or it could be just one of those things that I would be focusing on. The whole point of it being copy, target, sorcery, or instant. So again, I would have something like, there's that staff that you get to, if there's a copy, have an additional copy, and it costs like 8 to copy it. That would be a good card in here. I would have cards like that in it. Having like Winged Boots, Midnight Clock makes sense, but I've never really actually seen it go off that well. If there was some form of like, I would be probably adding in, if there's an instant that does like, we'll say draw a card, but then there's draw a card and proliferate, I would have that in just for that. Even if it may be a mana or 2 more. Again, the artifacts are in this weird space in my opinion. Now let's go on to enchantments. When it comes to enchantments, there's 3 in total, but I'll only be mentioning 2, and those 2 are Arcane Bombardment and Shark Typhoon. Shark Typhoon is a really good card. However, personally, if I was working for Wizards or Magic the Gathering and I was talking about this deck, I would probably take out an artifact or 2, because all of these decks seems to be very low on enchantments or getting too weak of enchantments. I would have something like the high cost one that lets you copy Swarm of something, I can't remember. It's like the Locust God with the Swarm that you get a copy next to sorcery. And then I would also have like other weird cards, like the cards that ETB doing 1 damage or multiple damage. It's very weird. There's so many good cards that are enchantments that should be in this deck, in my opinion, that are really not. I think, again, every deck I've made so far, this is my third recording, they've gone really weak on the enchantments. But again, if you think different from me, let me know in the comments down below. I would love to have a conversation. That's just my thought when it comes to these decks. It seems to be like the focus point of the weakest spot is the enchantments in all the decks I've made so far. But now let's go on to the lands of the deck. When it comes to the lands of the deck, there is 38 in total, but you get lands just like Cascade Bluffs, Frostball Snarl, and Sulphur Falls. As someone that has 3 Izzet decks, I find the lands to be very, very disappointing. Again, when I first made the Olivia video, there was quite a long list of lands that are somewhat good to okay. Now there's 3. I don't really like the lands in this deck at all. If it was one of those things, I would not be playing this deck. I don't really like this deck overall. I think it's kind of, they had 2 cool ideas for card, but they were so far apart that making a deck around it is very difficult for them to do. So I'm not the biggest fan of this deck. Overall, I would give it probably a 6.8, maybe a 7.2, because that commander, the sub commander, is absolutely amazing in my opinion. But as always, let me know what you think. What would you give it? Let me know in the comments down below. While you're there, remember to like, subscribe, and follow me on all my social media. But as always, I have the previous deck here, a playlist with all the Commander Magic the Gathering stuff here, and a subscribe button here, and I will see you in the last Outlaws of Thunder Junction video.